Welcome in. It is the local and community issues and answers right here with Jonathan Lawson. So glad to have in the studio with me today Dr. Marion Pennington. Now, she is a regional for 8 different counties of health and just reaching out to people. And Marion, welcome in.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're going to talk about some different issues today, and one that really sticks out in my mind. A lot of people don't realize these infections and these things that are passed around throughout our communities, and it's starting to be real bad out here. Explain to us, what is MRSA?
Well, MRSA stands for methicillin-resistant Staph aureus. Staph is a normal bacteria that's found on your skin. It's found on your hands, your face. But methicillin-resistant staph is different than just your regular staph that you find. Now, what happened is this staph became what we call a superbug. We had a lot of infections that were in our hospitals, and so this is where this started. So it became resistant to those antibiotics that they were using to treat it with. So that's where the methicillin part comes from. Methicillin is an antibiotic that was used to treat this for years and years and years. So I think it was in the early, like 1966 is when we first started seeing this. So now we're seeing a lot more of this in the community, out in our schools with our athletes and stuff like that. So it's a very contagious type of thing. You can get it from touching, inanimate objects or other, like clothing that has a draining lesion or whatever. The main thing is to be sure and wash your hands.
And the sanitizers, like the alcohol sanitizers, is that a good idea for people to keep them with them?
Well, it's a good idea to have those if you don't have access to good old soap and water. If you there's a lot of things that washing your hands will prevent. Well, this is one of them.
Okay.
So we teach the children in grade schools to wash their hands and sing the ABCs or the Happy Birthday song and go through that at least twice. That friction of rubbing your hands together is actually what gets rid of that bacteria off your hands or whatever.
What are some of the signs or some of the symptoms of having MRSA?
Well, a lot of people think it looks like a spider bite. It can be a very large, red, swollen area. If it's left untreated, can become draining. And that pustule that comes from that infection and that drainage is usually what can contaminate clothing, if you touch it, or if you're handling doorknobs or whatever. So anything that bacterial drainage comes in contact with is going to be able to infect someone else.
And this spreads really bad. Am I correct?
It's very easy to pick up. So that's why we're stressing for people, if you can't get access to good old soap and water, then your hand sanitizers are the next best thing.
What about people that's under the sound of our voice, they may be suffering from this or going through this? What are some treatments or some steps that they can protect themselves or protect people around them?
Well, the best thing to do is, if you suspect that you may have either come in contact with it, or if you have a lesion that looks like it might be red or swollen or painful to the touch, to go to your family physician. Seek help there first. And it's better to have it cultured so that you know what type of antibiotics are going to work on it.
Very good. And people don't realize this. If it's not treated, it will spread across your body.
Yes, it can. It can very easily. We see a lot of problems in some of our detention centers. Most of those people, are not in the best of conditions, that they're having to stay in. And so we see a lot of that in our jails and things like that.
MRSA is very dangerous as well if it gets in your bloodstream.
Right. There was a child a couple of years ago that was over in Virginia that died from that because they went septic. I think he was a very good athlete. He was on the football team and stuff like that. So it's very important for coaches, for teachers, if you happen to see a child that complains that they have a place that they need to have looked at, to encourage those children to go and have their family doctor look at it.
Well, now that while we're talking about this, what's the difference between MRSA or just some kind of body boil or some type of other infection? What's the difference in these?
You won't know until you have it cultured.
Exactly.
So anything that actually raises or causes a boil or any type of painful thing needs to be cultured just to make sure that you don't have this methicillin-resistant staph.